Let's see now. We have on our team, we have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
That's what I want to find out, the guy's name.
And then,
That's what I want to find out, the guy's name.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third.
Estamos pasávamos yo y mi hermana la grande Victoria 10 años. Cuando acabó la guerra, mi padre turnó.
Çünkü bazı hani elektrikler şeyler olmuyor. O zaman ne yapacaksın? Mecbur ışıldıyla çağıracaksın.
Hi everybody, I'm Morris again. This is how we're going to learn today. I'm going to try a different sort of format as I play with this medium, as I play with YouTube. I have to figure out what best works for the things I want to communicate. And today we're going to do this sort of face-to-face kind of a thing. Today's topic has to do with language and evolution, my favorite topic. The other day I was talking to a friend of mine, a new friend of mine, and she had lived in France. And at some point, probably because I love talking about these things, we talked about the difficulty of learning exceptions in the writing system of a language. French has this problem, definitely, and so does English. The relationship between, say, each sound of the language and the characters needed to write it is not nice one-to-one. You know, each sound, one character kind of a thing. There's a lot of contextual things. For example, in English we have this, words that belong to the sort of the classic set of traditionally Germanic set of words have the situation. For example, we can add a written E at the end of a written word, and that lets the reader know that he or she should change the quality of the vowel in the word. So B-A-D, bad, B-A-D-E, bade. You don't pronounce the E, but the E adds information. It tells you that it's not a silent E. Who told you it's a silent E? That's bullshit. It's not a silent E. It's a modify the first vowel E. G-A-T, you know it's gat. G-A-T-E, gate. This works for most combinations of sounds. There is exceptions and hence difficulty. So, based on our discussion with this friend of mine and you know, our general basic knowledge of English and similar languages, we know that some languages have this complex writing system that doesn't match well, it seems, with the sound system. And that's often because the writing system is much older than the current dialect, the current way we speak. We write the way we spoke a long time ago, around Shakespeare's time in English. So L-I-G-H-T looks weird. Why do we say light? There's no A, there's no E. It should be L-A-I-T, you know, something like that, or L-A-Y-T. Or L and a weird A character, which says A-T, late. Or, sorry, light. Sorry. But no, it's L-I-G-H-T. Why? Because it used to be Licht. Something like that. N-I-G-H-T. It isn't night, it's nicht. How do you say it in German? It's just an old writing thing that stayed, you know, and they have more in England. You know, more things are preserved in the original colony than they are here. It's also the opposite is true. There's some things that are preserved in the colonies that have changed in the original place. This is, again, evolution. Different video. Anyway, our writing systems in English and in French are hard to learn, whereas in, say, Spanish and Turkish, they're much easier. There's a nice closer relationship between each sound and each writing character, each graph or grapheme. It's not a one-to-one relationship. It never is. You know that's true. We'll talk about this later in a different video, but it can be much closer than it is in English and in French. Let's just say that. But in this conversation, I realized, or I had a thought, I could be wrong, but I had a thought, that this isn't the problem necessarily. This may be, I don't know, in evolution you often have a situation where a situation comes up and it becomes exploded. It has a use. It wasn't created for a purpose, it just came to be, but then, of all the systems that exist in the world, one of them takes hold. One of them takes hold and it finds a purpose. So what is the purpose of these difficult writing systems? Why would we want to keep this? Wouldn't it make sense to have a simpler writing system? One that anybody can learn? One that's easier to teach? One that costs less money to teach? How much money is wasted in English and in French by having teachers waste their time to teach some literal anachronism, a writing system that is 500 years old, rather than updating it? Okay, we'd have to update all the books. We would have to update all the books. That would be expensive. Good point. But still, we do waste and continue to waste and will continue to waste perpetually money on this teaching system, and eventually you have to replace the books anyway. So why not just save money and make things easier on everybody and have a better writing system for English and French and other languages that have this problem? I suspect German has this problem, but not to the degree that English and French, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, why not? And the answer is, why do you drive a car? Doesn't seem to make sense. Why do deer have horns? That's a similar answer to the question. There's no one answer, but there's several answers. And why do lions have manes, and why are they chock full of testosterone? Why? Why are male birds often more beautiful, more colorful, more ornate than female birds? And I believe that this connection at least is interesting. There's an evolutionary, there's a social benefit, if you want to call it a benefit, to difficult writing systems. Difficult writing systems are handicaps. And now I'm making reference to an idea which came about in the 1970s, and obviously it has roots in other things, but an important paper, the Zahavi handicap principle. Basically, the observation is this. There are many species of animals in the world that, wherein the male contributes nothing but his DNA to the future generation. Nothing else. No caretaking, no building of homes or dwellings, no food gathering, nothing. He just inseminates the female. There are cases where this is true of females. They do nothing. The male takes care of the babies. For example, jacanas, wattled jacanas. The female lays an egg and then she screws off, and the male has to raise the young. There's all these cases where males do nothing but just provide genetic data. So obviously, females wanting the best for their young, and this is kind of an oversimplification and anthropomorphization of the situation, but it's a short YouTube video. Females wanting the best for their young, or in a couple cases, the males wanting the best for the young, they have to choose the best DNA. How do we choose the best DNA? How do we know DNA is good if we don't have ways of doing, say, DNA splicing? No labs. Female deer, hearts, I guess technical term, the old word, heart, right? Hearts don't have DNA labs. So how do they do this? Well, the solution that has evolved, one of the solutions that's evolved in the natural world is where you basically try to kill the male. One statistic that I believe is correct, it takes white-tailed deer or red-tailed deer and the same amount of energy to grow a set of horns as it does to survive a year, other than the growing of the horns. So it's basically 2 deer for the price of 1. Sorry, 1 deer for the price of 2. There we go. 1 deer for the price of 2. It's very expensive to grow horns. And what does that say to the female? Well, if the male can put up with these horns, if he can feed himself and survive and be healthy and strong, and not be riddled with disease, and not be weak and gaunt and have bad horns, and if he can survive all the testosterone, and testosterone is one of these handicaps, one of these testosterone fights, if they can survive these fights and they can survive all this rutting and the horns and all this, strong babies, strong DNA. Well, how does this have to do with, what does this have to do with writing systems? Well, what does this have to do with cars? Cars are a terrible thing. They are expensive to run. They cost money, insurance and gas and maintenance, and you have to buy them every year, and they're constantly coming out with new ones. Why are they coming out with new ones? Because they get old. They get old. You can tell an old car. You know an old car when you see one. You know, a 15-year-old car is not cool, kids. It's not cool. A 70-year-old car can be very cool. A brand new car can be very cool. A brand new shitty car can be cool. If you buy yourself a Chevy Neon, it's kind of cool if it's new. And notice, the cheaper it is, the quicker it gets old. Another little fun fact right there. There's this, I call it the uncool valley. The middle-aged cars, 15 to 25, they're shit. But after a certain point, they start getting cool again. Even a cheap car gets cool again if you can maintain it, if you can find the parts and get it back up to coolness again. See that? Uncanny valley, uncool valley. It's a handicap. It's a barrier to entry. It says something about the owner of the car. He or she has money. He or she has time. He or she has experience. Has some valuable thing that allows them to drive a cool car. Same with the horns. That deer has access to resources and food and really good DNA that lets him survive a lot of BS. Growing the horns, other males, etc. Males equal BS in this sort of scenario. What about the writing system? Same thing. If you can spell well, it says something about the amount of time you were able to dedicate to learning a whole bunch of absurd rules that basically have little connection with today's system. They're many levels abstracted from a one-to-one relationship. They're hard to learn. And their being hard to learn says something about the resources your family, your school, your city, your state, your country, your society has to give to you to learn these systems. And it's not just writing in formal emails, it's writing in chats, it's writing under many circumstances. We make fun of bad writing. And when you think of bad writing, who makes mistakes with writing? Who? People with little education. It's a good measure of your education. That's not the only thing in language which is kind of a handicap type principle. There are other things. But exceptions to rules are good measures of how much education you got. And so I want to give you another example related to this. Why do we say swim, swam, swum? Why isn't it swim, swimmed, swimmed? Well, there's interesting explanations for this throughout linguistics, but one of them is handicap. It's hard to learn. And you know, educated children who come from really fancy families, speak a model closer to the fancy model. You know, a model closer to what we think is perfect English. It's not perfect English. It's the English that they say is perfect. It's the English that the nice people speak. Therefore, circuitously, it's their English, and it's the good English. And it's hard to learn. Exceptions are sexy. Exceptions say something. It says, I had the time to learn this. I had the money to learn this. A lot of people don't have the money or the time to learn these absurd exceptions. You can always tell a person who has read a lot but didn't grow up around people who used fancy words. So they mispronounce the fancy words, at least according to the fancy people. They read the word, but they weren't around the right milieu to learn, and my pronunciation sucks, to learn the right words, to how to pronounce these words. Handicaps. It is a barrier to entry, which sends a signal to other people in the society, to other males and females, as to your social quality. At least that's what I've discovered. Okay, that's this video. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you learned something. If you disagree with this, if you find some major hole in my argument, please comment. If you'd like to discuss it and actually develop this idea, please go ahead and talk to me. Thank you very much for your time. I'll see you around next time.